The most successful football club in Italy in terms of silverware, Juventus is synonymous with excellence both domestically and across the continent. Their stature in world football owes to the many top stars who represented the outfit in the various decades of victory. Names like Alessandro Del Piero, Dino Zoff, Zinedine Zidane, Pavel Nedved, and Cristiano Ronaldo are forever etched in Juve lore. But not all who have gone on to don the famous black and white jersey have left a lasting impression. There are some who are best forgotten or genuinely have been erased from the memories of fans, either because they weren't quite good enough or simply failed to hit the lofty heights expected. Welcome to Football Attitudes, 11 footballers you probably forgot played for Juventus. 11. Amand Traore. There was a time it looked as though Amand Traore might follow in the fabled footsteps of Ashley Cole and Gaël Clichy as Arsenal's next emerging left-back. But at 34, the former Senegal international currently finds himself without a club and is even considering retirement. Regardless, in 2010, Traore had the world at his feet, having just secured a season-long loan move to Juventus, all while inheriting David Trezeguet's esteemed number 17. Whether burdened by the weight of expectation or simply too inexperienced to outmuscle stalwart Fabio Grosso for the left-back position, Traore left Turin having made just a handful of appearances. He certainly wasn't helped by a 3-month injury layoff at the start of his Juventus spell. 10. Diego Ribas. Famously known as just Diego, the hype surrounding the Brazilian in 2009 went through the roof as he played a pivotal role in Werder Bremen's run to the final of the UEFA Cup. Bremen eventually lost in the showpiece event to Shakhtar Donetsk, but it was well known that Diego would be moving on to finer pastures, or so he thought. Juventus won the race to sign the forward in May 2009, but the club Diego was about to enter was one in transition before Andrea Agnelli, Beppe Marotta, and Antonio Conte would arrive to begin their complete dominance of the Italian game. The club spent most of its budget on acquiring the Brazilian striker and as a consequence had no money to reinforce other areas of the pitch. Diego stayed the one season in Turin, but with a poor supporting cast looked lost in Serie A before being sold to Wolfsburg in Germany. 9. Marcelo Salas. Most remember how Juventus used the Zinedine Zidane money from Real Madrid to buy Gianluigi Buffon, Pavel Nedved, Lilian Thuram, and Chilean striker Marcelo Salas in the summer of 2001. Salas was brought in from Lazio as a replacement for the departing Filippo Inzaghi, who was sold to AC Milan. The Chilean was at the peak of his powers, but he suffered from multiple injuries from the outset. This hampered any progress he hoped to make for the Bianconeri, and after 2 seasons at the club in which he only scored 4 goals, he was deemed surplus to requirement. It was a shame because Salas had the potential to be devastating at Juve, but he unfortunately failed to create a lasting legacy. 8. Felipe Melo. To say Juventus overpaid for Felipe Melo is a massive understatement. No doubt, the Brazilian was a tough-tackling midfielder who put himself about and actually tried to enforce, but was his services really worth 25 million euros? Absolutely not. Melo was the kind of player who could start a fight in an empty room and couldn't cope with the expectations that come with being a player at Juventus. After 2 train wreck seasons in which he made 78 appearances, scored 4 goals, and was sent off for leaving his studs in the face of Parma's Massimo Pacci, Melo was shipped off to Galatasaray in the summer transfer of 2011, with some fans still questioning if he really played for the old lady. 7. Edwin van der Sar. Van der Sar was signed as a replacement for goalkeeper Angelo Peruzzi, who had left the club to join Inter in the summer of 1999. The Dutchman was viewed as one of the best goalkeepers in the world at the time, owing to his form at Ajax during their mid-90s golden period. However, he found things more difficult in Turin and is chiefly remembered for being the unwilling participant in Roberto Baggio's masterpiece against Juve in April 2001, as the Italian striker embarrassingly rounded him to score after receiving a lovely pass from Brescia teammate Andrea Pirlo. Baggio's brilliance made him look like a Sunday League goalkeeper, and it proved the final blow to his Juve career. Van der Sar would be swiftly sold to English club Fulham 2 months later before the Bianconeri acquired Buffon from Parma for a world record fee. The Dutchman did later rebuild his career at Manchester United, where he exemplified his greatness and was fortunate to win his 2nd Champions League crown. 6. Benedikt Höwedes. The Germany international is a Schalke legend, having made over 300 appearances for the club while also lifting a DFB Pokal in 2011. But in 2017, Juventus decided it was time to test himself at a higher level and joined Juventus in another of the club's audacious loan moves. Like many on this list, Juventus' temporary time in Turin was largely a disappointment. The defender made just 3 appearances and Juve opted against making his deal a permanent one. He retired in the summer of 2020 and is now an assistant coach for the German national team under head coach Julian Nagelsmann. 5. Norberto Neto. The Bournemouth goalkeeper was a formidable force between the sticks in Serie A, but he will be more commonly remembered for his time at Fiorentina rather than Juventus. After 4 successful years playing in Florence, Neto joined Massimiliano Allegri's side in 2015. He must have known he was in for a bit-part role though, as Gigi Buffon was still defying gravity back then. The Brazilian, unsurprisingly unable to supplant the ageless Italian, would spend 2 years in Turin playing second fiddle before ultimately reviving his career in La Liga with Valencia and Barcelona before he was signed on a free by Bournemouth in August of 2022. 4. Lucio. Famed for being the formidable barricade in Jose Mourinho's watertight Inter Milan backline, the Brazilian wasn't quite able to replicate that success with Juventus in 2012. The centre-back helped form an impenetrable defense during the Nerazzurri's historic treble in 2010, but barely got a look in at Juve. Despite Conte favouring a back 3, Lucio made just 4 appearances in all competitions before having his contract terminated by mutual consent in December of 2012. A combination of injury problems, inconsistent showings, and the form of Giorgio Chiellini, Leonardo Bonucci, and Andrea Bazzali meant that the treble winner spell at Juve was fleeting to say the least. 3. Simone Zaza. Zaza is largely remembered for 2 things, namely that bizarre run-up and penalty miss at Euro 2016 and an ill-fated move to English Premier League club West Ham. The Hammers have a history of signing shoddy strikers, but few could have predicted that bringing one over from Juventus would backfire, and it spectacularly did. The Italian had in fact impressed Juve so much he convinced the club to sign him twice, once in 2013 and again in 2015 after a highly productive stint with Sassuolo. His 2013 transfer was a co-ownership deal between Sassuolo and Juventus, where he made 0 appearances for the latter after Sassuolo bought him outright. In the summer of 2015, Juve would retain the right to repurchase the striker. However, Zaza failed to make the grade, spending the 1 season in Turin before being loaned to West Ham. 2. Niklas Bentner. Joining Juve's long list of bizarre loan signings is Lord Bentner himself, who played very briefly for the club in the 2012-2013 season. The Dane joined the Serie A outfit on loan from Arsenal on deadline day of the August 2012 transfer window with an option to make the move permanent. But after just 2 league starts and a grand total of 0 goals in 11 appearances in all competitions, it's hardly a wonder he was allowed to return to the Gunners. Bentner's form was certainly not helped by a thigh injury that required surgery and was expected to be out for at least 2 months, with his career sadly nosediving since that spell after rising to prominence as a precocious towering forward. To be fair, an arrest for drink driving in the streets of Turin didn't help his cause either. 1. Nicolas Anelka. The much-travelled French striker once turned up for Juventus, albeit in a brief 5-month loan spell in 2013 that is largely forgotten. Anelka has played for a plethora of clubs, 12 in 7 different countries to be exact, and scored goals aplenty. However, the Frenchman failed to score in 3 games for Juventus. The Bianconeri fans were not enthused in the first place that their beloved Juve signed a 34-year-old striker who had been playing in China, and the club later observed that Anelka was not fit enough to further his chances. Nevertheless, he still ended up collecting a winner's medal after the 2012-2013 Serie A season during an otherwise uneventful stint in Italy.